Most importantly, we are going to remember our First Amendment right to free speech, to free expression, to free assembly, and we are going to use our rights to build up the infrastructure to fight back. Because we're recording this at 7:40 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. That is just under 2 hours before Donald Trump gives his first joint address to Congress. And yes, we are recording over him, but we don't care because, let's be clear, the State of the Union was put on full display Friday, February 28th in the Oval Office. But before we get to that, we know it's been a while since our last episode of Concepts of a Pod, and we appreciate your patience. So Shayna and I wanted to give you a little update on what we've been up to. And Shayna?
Yeah, first of all, I know we miss you guys. I've missed doing this, but don't worry. We're going to start doing more. We took a little break because I have some very exciting news. I am now doing community outreach for a government office. So I've been really excited to take essentially like the next step in working in politics. I have worked for, at this point, 22 different campaigns throughout the last 7-8 years, and I've never seen through a candidate who I got elected. And I'm really excited to work in the government office and see how all that works to, maybe take the next step forward after that.
First off, congratulations, Shayna. That's so exciting, and I've known about this for a little bit, and I'm so excited that we can finally tell you a little more because you are thinking about running, aren't you?
We can talk about that another time.
Yeah. True.
We can talk about that another time.
Either way. Before we get to the news, a bit about what I've been up to over here. I've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes on the new Digital Now tech platform, building out the petition system that you've all seen. And thank you all so much for your thoughtful feedback, for all of your responses, petition signatures, and all of your financial support that has just really been the one inspiration in this dark time that all of you are ready to fight back and are investing in the technology to help us do that in an effective way.
You really turned this into something we didn't think it was going to turn into.
It wasn't just me. Wouldn't be anything without the authenticity that your field experience brings because, as we know, the digital fundraisers are sometimes the worst of the worst, but
we've all got to work together. We've all got our part. And this also would not have become what it was without all of you watching. So we're so thankful that you are still here and along for the ride. And there's so many exciting things that we're doing. And Jordan will tell you all about it.
Yeah, and it's all thanks to you, and as part of the work I've been doing over the past couple weeks, I've really been reading through every one of your comments. Even if I can't respond to every one of them, I have been reading through all of them and looking forward to addressing them as we get into how we're going to fight back against, I don't even know what to call this at this point, but might as well just get into the news and get that out of the way because we do have to talk about the State of the Union. And no, I'm not talking about that speech that Trump's about to give. That's not even a State of the Union. It's just a joint address. I'm talking about the display of the tragic state of our union that Trump put on in the Oval Office last Friday, which really might be another day that will live in infamy.
Yeah, there's just not a whole lot of words to describe what happened. It left me pretty speechless. I was at an event for work where I couldn't have my phone, and as soon as I got my phone back, it was just everyone asking me if I had seen what happened in the Oval Office, and I was like, oh my God, what happened now? And nothing could have prepared me for what I saw.
Oh, you too? Yeah, no, I was actually on a plane. I went to a friend's wedding over the weekend because, of course, my luck, the one weekend I try to unplug for a little bit. I'm in the middle seat on the plane, and it's an old plane with the tiny little TVs, one of them stuck on Fox News, and it's just showing the chyrons and the clips of what's being said. I'm like, this can't be. Even Fox News isn't trying to spin this, but
this was like dystopian. I know that we thought what we have already seen from the Trump administration was dystopian. This was actually dystopian, for real this time.
Did you watch the whole thing?
No, I did not watch the whole thing. I was too nervous to, but I have a feeling you're about to show me the whole clip, aren't you?
Yeah, I won't make you sit through all 50 minutes because the first 30 minutes of it, which no one will know, was Zelenskyy actually listening patiently as Trump spewed Russian talking points from the Oval Office in low-key Charlottesville, the whole thing. But I do want to show you the entirety of the exchange that everyone's talking about, and most importantly, the part leading immediately up to when things blew up, because I do think that's important.
Right, but what if Russia tries to invade or there's Russian aggression in response?
I just told you, I don't think that's going to happen. And if that were going to happen, I wouldn't make a deal. If I thought that was going to happen, I wouldn't make a deal.
Some people may wonder why.
You know, they ought to focus on CNN on survival, not asking me these ridiculous questions. Focus on surviving, because CNN's got such low ratings. I don't think they're going to survive. Let's go.
This I already mentioned Poland. Poland was under Russian control for decades after the Second World War. And now I'm talking with my friends in Poland, and they are worried that you align yourself too much with Putin. What's your message for them?
Well, if I didn't align myself with both of them, you'd never have a deal. I'm aligned with the world, and I want to get this thing over with. You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred. And I understand that, but I can tell you the other side isn't exactly in love with, him either. You want me to be tough? I could be tougher than any human being you've ever seen. I'd be so tough, but you're never going to get a deal that way. So that's the way it goes. All right, one more question.
Hey, I want to respond to this. So look, for 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the president of the United States' words mattered more than the president of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So in 2019, I signed with him the deal. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people, and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring it into this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Count once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once? This entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, you said thank you. You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Your country's in big trouble.
Can I answer?
Wait a minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning. You're not winning. If you didn't have our military equipment, if you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days, this is something
Maybe
new.
less.
In 2 weeks, of course,
It's
yes.
going to be a very hard thing to do business like this. I
Again,
tell you,
just say thank you.
because let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards, but without us, you don't have any cards.
One more question to Mr. Vice President. I'm sorry.
It's going to be a tough deal to make
Uh,
because the attitudes have to change.
What if Russia breaks ceasefire? What if Russia breaks peace talks? What do you do then? I understand that it's a heated conversation right now.
What are you
but
saying?
what if
She's asking, what if Russia
Putin
breaks the ceasefire?
What if anything? What if a bomb drops on your head right now?
But they have
Okay?
broken
What if they
ceasefire.
broke it? I don't know. They broke it with Biden because Biden, they didn't respect him. They didn't respect Obama. They respect me. The problem is I've empowered you to be a tough guy. And I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States. And your people are very brave. But you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out. But you don't have the cards. But once we sign that deal, you're in a much better position. But you're not acting at all thankful. And that's not a nice thing. I'll be honest, that's not a nice thing. All right, I think we've seen enough. What do you think? Huh? This is going to be great television, I will say that.
Really great television, huh? What do you think?
I have so many thoughts going through my head right now. The first one is they said that a woman would be too emotional to run this country. That is the first thing that was going through my head the whole time. That was one of the hardest things I think I've ever had to watch. I was so uncomfortable the whole time. I cannot believe that this conversation that was supposed to be to have some diplomacy was two men saying, why don't you say thank you to me? There's no words to describe what is going through my head right now after watching that. To have the confidence of a white man, God help us all.
So was it even worse than you thought?
Yeah, that was significantly worse than I thought it was going to be. You probably are not going to put this in the episode, but I'm going to say it anyways because it was something running through my head the entire time. This reminded me exactly of a conversation that happened between my ex-boyfriend and I, where he told me I was not thankful enough for something that he had not done and was threatening our relationship over it. And that if I said thank you, everything would be okay. And as soon as I said thank you, I was told that it wasn't good enough. And I feel like that is exactly what just happened right now in front of my face. But this has to do with Russia and Ukraine and the United States, some of the most important and dangerous countries in the world with what they have access to. You were spot on a couple months ago when you talked about this being a reality TV show. I know this is not going to be the peak of the season, but we're building up right now into this reality TV show that we are living in. And one of the other things that was in my head the entire time watching this was I was told by so many people, these things are not going to happen. These crazy things you're hearing are not going to happen. Your rights are not going to be taken away. You're not going to be threatened. Here's another little piece of news. In Iowa this week, they voted to take out gender protection in the Iowa Civil Rights Code. So
Seriously?
there can now be discrimination based off of your gender for anything, anywhere in the state of Iowa. So if I wanted to apply for or get a checking account at a bank, they could tell me no in Iowa. If I wanted a job, they could tell me no in Iowa because I'm a woman. But I'm a white woman. I'm very privileged. This destruction that Republicans did in Iowa was aimed at hurting the LGBTQ plus community and specifically the trans and non-binary community.
You mean the same people who are reporting having trouble getting passports right now, which essentially would stop them from fleeing the country if this persecution gets worse? And I'm not going to cut your story because it's actually, I think it really is relevant in that the way that Trump and Vance were behaving there towards Zelenskyy is the exact way that I imagine. And I mean, I'm privileged enough not to have had to go through this, but I've listened to enough stories from women who have. Is that not the kind of gaslighting that an abusive man does towards a woman?
two, well, more than two, but in that scene, we had two incredibly narcissistic men who are now running the country and basically asking you to get on your hands and knees and beg for anything that you want. Otherwise, like, they're going to threaten you and take away things. And no matter what you do, even if you do everything you like they say you should, they're still going to take away things.
Well, yeah, and this is classic Trump too, because it's the way he sits in the office between the advisors and the guy he's dealing with. It's like The Apprentice. And the one thing he really is good with is that cut button. He knows when to cut it off and say you're fired, because as a reality producer, what he realized, because he's so good at casting, as he says, all I will say is if I were casting somebody to play a strong, badass president and I had to choose from anyone in that scene, who are you picking, Shayna?
That's a tough one. I would pick Zelenskyy, very obviously.
Yeah, and it makes me think back to like any classic movie where there's a strong American president. Usually the Russians are the bad guys, and usually the president gets the big applause for standing up to the bad guys. So this isn't making America great again. This is making America weak again. Like, I don't know, when were we at our weakest? The Great Depression, like, because the stock market's tanking?
Also, if you didn't know, the last time we had a Republican-held Senate, House, most of the governors in the U.S. were Republican. Supreme Court, and there's one other category I'm forgetting, was in, guess what year? 1928. Guess what happened in 1929? I'll let you figure it out from there.
Yeah.
We're not in a great place.
To cap it all off, if anyone remembers, actually, I will let Ben Stein in Ferris Bueller's Day Off tell you what happened there.
In 1930, the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, in an effort to alleviate the effects of the, anyone? The Great Depression, passed the, anyone? The tariff bill, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act, which, anyone, raised or lowered? Raised tariffs in an effort to collect more revenue for the federal government. Did it work? Anyone? Anyone know the effects? It did not work, and the United States sank deeper into the Great Depression.
And I really, really hope we're not going down that road again, but history starts to rhyme.
It's not looking so great. That clip that we just all saw is unfortunately not the worst thing that we are going to see happen in our democracy and with diplomacy in the next 4 years.
Yeah, I don't want to be so doom and gloom, though, because it really, how bad it's going to get depends on how loud we speak up.
There's actually one last thing I want to say on this. So I think I've mentioned it a few times. I live in Illinois and I live in Chicago. And a couple weeks ago, Governor J.B. Pritzker gave his speech for the state of the state and the budget address for Illinois.
Incredible speech, by the way.
If you did not watch it, I highly recommend it. It was so great that Rachel Maddow opened up her show with it that evening that it happened.
You know what? Here's some highlights for you.
I do not invoke the specter of Nazis lightly, but I know the history intimately. Here's what I've learned. The seed that grew into a dictatorship in Europe a lifetime ago didn't arrive overnight. It started with everyday Germans mad about inflation and looking for someone to blame. I'm watching with a foreboding dread what is happening in our country right now. A president who watches a plane go down in the Potomac and suggests without facts or findings that a diversity hire is responsible for the crash. I just have one question. What comes next? After we've discriminated against, deported, or disparaged all the immigrants and the gay and lesbian and transgender people, the developmentally disabled, the women, and the minorities, once we've ostracized our neighbors and betrayed our friends, after that, when the problems we started with are still there staring us in the face, what comes next? All the atrocities of human history lurk in the answer to that question. And if we don't want to repeat history, then for God's sake, in this moment, we better be strong enough to learn from it.
When JB starts talking about how quickly it took for the Nazis to take over, I don't want people to feel scared because there are things we can do. There are multiple elections, lots and lots of elections that are happening between now, like literally in a month, April 1st, in multiple states for local elections, all the way through November of 2026. We can change things and you should get involved. And that is something that Jordan and I are going to be working on and have been working on to make sure that we continue to fight back against everything that is happening right now. As hard as it may be, sometimes we are choosing hope and we are choosing to push forward. And that's how we're going to continue to get through this.
Yeah, and most importantly, we are going to remember our First Amendment right to free speech, to free expression, to free assembly. And we are going to use our skills and our rights to build up the infrastructure to fight back. Because right now, with the Associated Press abdicating, and the reason they are censoring things is literally because they want their access back. They want to get back in the room because their reporters are not being invited because they pissed Trump off, which is horrible. And then you've got Jeff Bezos gutting the opinion section of the Washington Post because...
I forgot that happened. What a long week it's been.
Yeah, which is why it is so important that we are building the new Digital Now technology platform free of influence from these big mega rich donors whose livelihoods depend on the laws and the tax cuts. And instead, we are funded entirely by donors like you who are watching this podcast. And that's why we do what we do. If you're wondering where all your money's going, it's going to build the platform that we need to be able to mount an effective resistance when every single corporate media platform is clearly intent on making it harder for us.
Yeah, no, we are so thankful for everything that you guys have done for us. I just pulled up our fundraising information, and over the last 14 days, our average contribution as of this moment, Tuesday, March 4th, at 8:16 p.m. Eastern is $10.55. That's a really incredible number. Like, just to prove to everybody that we are not taking money from, big rich people, our average donation is $10.55. And that is all from all of you.
And not only do your donations power us financially and make it possible to do what we do without corporate influence or bosses who work for big corporate donors telling us what we can and can't say, we also use your input in the surveys, the petitions you choose to sign, the ones that are most popular, and the responses you give in the surveys to shape our strategy and to decide what we talk about on the podcast, how we frame issues, because we're not just doing this for ourselves. We're doing this because we know that you feel like your voices aren't heard, and we want to give you that channel. And with that, I want to talk about Trump's speech tonight, which will now be happening in about 40 minutes or so. And yeah, I know we are recording over it. We are making that choice. And that is because we saw in our focus group that it was pretty split on what people want Democrats to do. But the plurality at 35% want Democrats to boycott the speech, as representatives like AOC and the representative who beat her for the Oversight Committee ranking membership, Connolly, are both boycotting. Jeffries will be in attendance, and of the people who didn't want our representatives to boycott, 31% wanted them to show up respectfully, and 23% wanted to see some sort of disruption in the chamber, which, what do you think? Like, how would you respond to it if you were a member of Congress?
Obviously no violence. But I don't think there's anything wrong with using your First Amendment right to protest things that you don't think are right. And I also think it was incredibly interesting seeing almost how evenly split all the answers were, seeing how angry people are now, and that the whole idea of, if you don't have anything to say, don't say anything at all, sit there and be quiet, that's all getting thrown out the window. And it's something I actually really, really appreciate. My slogan, the thing I say when I would train people for field, when I would run campaigns, was ask for forgiveness, not permission. Of course, not trying to be a bad influence. But I think there's a really large importance to just do it. And if something goes wrong, And most of the time it won't. You can ask for forgiveness after that, but you did it and everyone else did it because they believed in it. And that means something.
Yeah, honestly, I really hope we do see something, and not something so outrageous that they can rant about it, but like I saw a bunch of comments in the focus group today from people who said they wanted to see representatives get up and walk out, which I think would be a powerful statement. And all I will say is that I hope we see someone break through with something, because we'll see what happens. But my gut feeling here is that Democrats are going to try something. It'll get a little traction among our people who already agree with us. Elon will make fun of it. They'll move on to the next thing with their flood the zone strategy, and nothing will really amount for us, except for the fact that we won't have been talking about what happened in the Oval Office on Friday anymore. And the Republicans have once again run the ban and flood the zone special, and Democrats are about as useless as the Kansas City Chiefs running against the Eagles tush push. Too soon? Sorry.
I'm a Taylor Swift fan first and foremost, and that's where I'll end my statement.
Okay, but still go Birds. Okay, let's get back to the topic at hand here, because, I mean, all I was trying to say with this is that, unfortunately, it feels like Democrats have not managed to change the news cycle at all. It seems like other than plane crashes, nothing has shifted the news cycle from where Trump wanted it to be. Does that feel right to you?
They're trying, and like something that I saw today was Charlie Kirk on Twitter was also, if you don't know who Charlie Kirk is, he's like the head of Turning Point USA, which is an ultra conservative platform trying to get young people to be Republicans and conservative. Not big fans of them. But anyways, Charlie Kirk posted a tweet with a montage of, I believe it was 23 different Democrat senators.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, all saying the same thing, the same video. And he's like, look at what they're doing. And most of the comments on his page were actually roasting him, because they were like, you do the exact same thing, my guy. And so does the government that you just got elected. But it's
every accusation is a confession.
Yeah, literally. But I think that right now, Democrats are in a moment where they're trying as hard as they can. But when you see shock, when you see drama, when you see good television, it's hard to break through all of that noise. And Democrats are trying, but they're still playing too safe. I miss how fiery Elizabeth Warren was on the presidential trail. I miss how fiery Bernie Sanders was on the presidential trail. I miss how fiery Pete Buttigieg was on Fox News while he was the Secretary of Transportation. I miss how fiery Joe Biden was in his last few weeks in office. We need that again.
Yeah, and I want to go back to what you said about it being good TV, because it's actually, I mean, it's not good TV. Trump is a flop era reality host who took his act to Washington because no one wanted him, so he went for the lowest racist common denominator. And I gotta say, I saw a tweet somewhere that said Hillary Clinton's mistake wasn't saying basket of deplorables, it was backtracking it. She should have said it again.
But the problem is, and I've noticed this is like a very American thing, even bad reality TV is still watched more than lots of other things, because when you see something uncomfortable, hard to watch, shocking, entertaining, you don't want to look away. And in that clip that we were watching, I never really looked away, even though I was so uncomfortable watching the whole thing. And Democrats need to learn how to fight back against that. They need to go out there. They need to do big things. And I know that we're trying to push through the noise. And I think we've done a fairly good job for who we are with our community that we are beginning to build, which, by the way, if you want to be part of our community, join our Discord. We've been working on pushing through the noise, and I can't wait to see where we end up. And I'm really hoping that other people with larger audiences follow suit.
Yeah, and it's really with social media too, Democrats are trying hard, but part of the problem too is, again, that the billionaires own these platforms, and we don't know how intentionally or unintentionally they may or may not have thumbs on scales. But the one thing we do know is that right-wing content seems to take off, and content that divides Democrats seems to take off, but content that unites the Democratic base seems to fall flat. And the more we think about it, and the reason we created concepts of a pod and New Digital Now is because we believe that this can be the place to have that better better conversation and to bring our politicians on and grill them on what they need to be doing to respond to the donors who fund their campaigns and who fund our party operations, because everyone from organizer memes to the late night hosts to the people who are taking our surveys are talking about the abundance of fundraising texts. And the more I think about it, it is the one tool we have that we can get information directly in front of people like you very quickly. And so many people in our party are using it to raise more money for their own consulting firms. And actually, somebody in our focus group said something on our petition system that I want to take a minute to respond to. They said, Democrats must develop a strong message to make Republicans take the blame for inflation and job losses resulting from Trump's agenda. The message must be clear and consistent. The recently announced tariffs will provide useful, specific information. Signing petitions to change the Constitution is a waste of time and an affront to people's intelligence. And I know this is a comment about our Electoral College petition, which, by the way, hit its goal. So we will be discussing that later in the episode. So stay tuned, because the Electoral College petition, unlike most of those scammy petitions like the No Kings Act, is actually something that we want to explore, because weirdly, it's something we might actually be able to do, and it's really exciting. So more on that. But the reason people didn't believe that was possible is because our outdated messaging system has people seeing messages with these things like the No Kings Act or other things that could never pass, that nobody knows what to believe anymore.
Yeah. I want people to know that what we're doing is we actually do have plans to pass along all of these signatures we get on our petitions, much like change.org, and do something about it.
But before we get into the details of the Electoral College petition and all of the other petitions that have passed their goals in the petition system, I want to give you guys the backstory about why we built that, because it's actually something that really means a lot to us and that we are working to integrate into our larger messaging strategy. And it was actually inspired by, do you remember the petition system that President Obama's White House had on their website?
I do know a little bit about it.
Yeah, it was really cool. They had a website where anyone could submit a petition to the White House, and if it got over 100,000 signatures, the White House would issue an official response, and it would be something they'd have some communications staffer write up a response. Things that really mattered, like gun violence, were treated with the respect they deserve. I believe there was a response written by then Vice President Biden about that. And then things like a petition to build the Death Star were met with a tongue-in-cheek response from someone at the Defense Department about why that was just not practical or possible.
Dang.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm really happy we don't have the Death Star right now, because Trump would have the keys to it. But
you know what? I rescind my snap. I take it back.
yeah, but anyway, obviously, it shouldn't come as a shock to anyone that that website is no longer active in the new Trump White House. And so we built a new version of it, and we won't say that because you sign the petition, the thing will happen. But what we will do is we will take in petitions that people suggest, send them out, take looks at how many people sign them. As you've seen, if you've been on the website, it is a real live counter of how many people sign it. I programmed it myself. It took a lot of work, and I've been making improvements to it based on the comments that you guys have been submitting, like to make it easier to sign multiple petitions at once. And the most important part of this is actually a new segment we're now going to introduce on Concepts of a Pod, where at the end of each episode, along with our Q&A, we're going to take time to talk about the petitions that have reached their goals and discuss what Democrats can do to get these things done, what Democrats can't do except for win elections and wait it out and fight harder, and which things are things that you may have been lied to about in the past. And the first one I want to talk about, which was the first one to reach its goal, protect Social Security from Elon Musk's Doge. And I will say, Social Security petitions, I have always, as long as I've been doing this, I've been asked to write some scammy things, some misleading things, but the one that's always rubbed me really the wrong way is the stuff about Social Security that people would write, because for the longest time, as long as we've known in politics, Social Security wasn't going anywhere. It is the third rail of American politics. People know not to touch it, but with Elon now hacking his way through it, this is the first time that I've actually wondered, is Social Security safe? We will yell about it like hell at any chance we get.
That's right.
Everyone else is too, but rest assured, I promise you, and Shayna, you know this too, working on government and campaign side, that if something happened to Social Security, all 535 members of Congress would be up in arms about it, right?
Oh my gosh, absolutely everybody. I cannot tell you how, if you thought any time that you saw marches such as when Roe v. Wade was repealed, women's marches, LGBTQ plus marches, this would cause the largest outrage I think I will ever see in my lifetime. So many people, not so many, literally everybody depends on Social Security. And it is something that it's a very uniquely United States issue.
You know what? I would go a step further to say that if Elon Musk actually breaks things so badly that Social Security payments don't go out, that might be what it takes to get Trump to break with him. And that actually leads into our next petition, which is about prosecuting Elon Musk and his hackers for stealing Americans' financial information. Because let's be clear, I think the biggest mistake Elon Musk has made so far is that he tweets out everything Doge does. And by the letter of the law, I know, right? Because by the letter of the law, a lot of the things they're doing are federal crimes.
Just a little bit.
They're collecting classified information on unclassified servers. Do Hillary's email servers mean anything to anyone?
The comments are going to go crazy. We can't get back into Hillary's emails.
We'll just talk again, the double standards here.
Don't get me started on double standards, or we'll be here for another hour.
An unelected billionaire can tear his way through the Treasury's computer systems.
But I think we're all really well aware that the moment that anyone ticks Trump off and goes against him, he'll go against you, and Elon Musk will most definitely have a witch hunt after him. He will most definitely be prosecuted under the Trump administration as soon as Trump turns on him. And that's a ticking time bomb. We'll see when that happens.
Yeah, especially since it really feels like Elon has been the one to take the blame for every single unpopular thing that Trump has done. And I think Trump knows that too. But yeah. And then the next petition that has hit its goal is block all of Trump's legislation and fight back hard. This was one of our petitions to Democrats in Congress, who certainly need to be fighting back a lot harder. And I think they've kind of started to find their feet a little bit. This petition has been on the system for a couple weeks now, and it feels like Democrats are actually responding to people's concerns in the various forums they're submitting them, which, again, you guys have power. Bug your representatives. Bug your senators, bug everyone who you elect and pay with your taxes to represent you, because you have that power. And show up at those town halls that Republicans aren't even holding anymore and call them out for that.
No, please do call your representatives. I'm now one of the people that answers the phone when you call your representative or your senator or your local legislator, your city council member's office. I'm one of the people who answers those now. And I want you to call. I want to receive all of those calls. I cannot tell you how it makes me happy and sad when people call, because I'm so happy that someone is calling the office to voice their opinion. But it makes me sad that we are in this place right now. But I'm happy that I'm able to help them and put their opinion out there and raise up their opinion. So please call your legislators. It is so important. I want to answer the phone for all of you.
Yeah, and especially with a government shutdown fight looming, I know the Republicans are having trouble, even with the majority getting all the votes together to pass a budget bill. I actually, because of this petition, asked in our focus group whether or not you all would want to see Democrats work with Republicans to keep the government open or let it shut down if they failed to pass a bill. And just over half of you said that you would want to see them let it shut down, and only 29% wanted a compromise, which I think really says a lot about just how shaken all of our trust in what used to be pretty standard institutional safeguards has become.
People are angry, and I'm so glad that people are now starting to figure out where their anger should be placed and how it can create and facilitate change. And just one of the other reasons we wanted to start this whole thing with our petitions was we know it can feel hard to understand and to know where to start to make change. And so we built the platform for you to sign these petitions, or if you want to make your own, you can do it through our website and share it with people and have them sign it. We want to help all of you become activists or be better activists or just feel like you are part of making a change, because that's what we are doing. That's what all of you are doing. We want to raise up your voices. That is what we've been about the entire time. And I just wanted to make sure that all of you know that, like that is what we're here for. I know I'm speaking for Jordan and myself here. We want to help all of you feel like you are doing something, because you are doing something, and it can be so hard to get involved. And we're so happy that you are choosing us to help you get involved.
Yeah, and we are here to help you make sense of it all, because some of the petitions, too, what we're going to tell you is there are very specific people who have the power to do something about this, and those people are doing that thing, even though you may not see it. And that really relates to a few petitions that we wanted to bring up, which are Restore USAID, Stop Elon Musk from Firing Federal Workers, and Protect HHS from Trump, Save Medical Research. Those are things that have already started to be fought in court, and lawyers are winning because it is Congress who controls government funding. All the Treasury's job is to send the money where it's supposed to go, and if they are not doing their jobs, checks and balances from the court say that that's not okay. And if they actually start ignoring court orders, because I know they've been flirting with that, then we get up in the streets and we start protesting, because that is just several bridges too far. But in the meantime, just stay on your representatives, call them and let them know what things you want funded, so that when they go to decide what's in that next budget, and I know Trump wants to see Medicaid cut now, it's insane. We got to be on our representatives about what our priorities are. And same with another petition that people really had a lot of interest in, protecting the Department of Education, because with WWE President Linda McMahon at the helm of it now, it's really going to get a smackdown at the federal level. But that's where... Sorry, I couldn't help myself. But all seriousness, education is one of those issues that really, 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 even more so now, is going to come down to the state level, because it is your local school board that decides what's taught. It is your property taxes that are paying for public schools. I mean, unfortunately, the poorest places are going to be hit hard, because that's who relies on the Department of Education for funding. But as for your own backyard, education is one of those issues where you're really going to want to look local in the next few years, because your local government will be your savior. And that finally takes us back to the last petition I want to address, for our commenter earlier who said that it was an affront to intelligence to suggest that the Electoral College could be eliminated because you have to change the Constitution. The fact is, you actually don't have to change the Constitution. And I read about this first in high school and didn't think much of it. And then I saw some fundraising content about it in 2020. And then when I really started to take it seriously was when I was working at the DLCC, and I started hearing it kicked around internally in a way that made me think this might actually be possible. Have you ever heard of the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact?
I know a little bit about it. Tell me more.
So the idea is that, little civics lesson for everyone here, the Electoral College is in the Constitution, but it is up to state legislators how the electoral votes are appointed. That's why, for example, in Nebraska, electoral votes are appointed by congressional district, not statewide. That's a decision that the state legislature made, and the state legislature can change. So there is nothing in the Constitution that says state legislatures can't just decide to give all of their electoral votes to the national popular vote winner. So you may or may not know this, but there are actually 209 electoral votes worth of states, I can put up a map for you, that have passed a law that put this compact into effect. And what that law says is that if 270 votes total worth, or another 61 in the case we're in now, also pass this law, it will trigger it into effect, and those states will, from that day on, give their electoral votes to the national popular vote winner. And since they have over 270, which is how many you need to win, will effectively make the Electoral College irrelevant.
That's so exciting. And it's just also one of those things that you never know. There's all these little loopholes that are in your state government and that the federal government has just never covered. Again, call your local representatives. Call your local representatives. Call your local representatives. They will be able to help you with so many things, and they're happy to explain a lot of these things to you too. And I guarantee you, most of your local representatives probably don't even know about this pact. And if you bring it up, they will look into it. And I know for a fact, there's going to be so many local representatives, specifically Democrats, but your local representative, they're a Democrat, call them and ask them about this and ask if your local representative supports this. It's going to trigger something in their brains. They're going to start looking into it. I know some people think that when you call a government office, their call just goes into a void. I promise it doesn't. I'm working in that world now. It does not go into a void. We track and respond to everything. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer because government takes longer than political campaigns do, which is another thing that I'm learning. But we take literally everything that anyone calls in about, emails in about, texts in about, drops off information in person, mails us about. We take all of that into consideration and we talk about it every week. Call your local representatives about this pact. I'm super excited to see what all of you have to say after you've called them, and tell us how it goes with your representatives when you ask them about this pact. I want to know.
Yeah, and the pact will also be a significant part of our local level strategy. We'll be asking candidates about it when they come on the pod too. And speaking of those responses, I want to address a couple questions that were submitted to our comment section for the Q&A of this episode. One person said, I have sent 2 questions. When and how will I get the answers? And another said, this is my second visit to the site because on my first visit you didn't respond with an answer, just another ask for funds. Just what are you going to do with these funds that aren't already being done by others? And to answer your question, we're building the technology that makes it easier for everyone who sends those messages to you to answer questions like these. And we're in early beta, as you may or may not know. It takes a lot of time, energy, and resources to build a technology product from scratch. Usually companies do it with millions and millions of dollars of venture capital money, but then they have to listen to investors, and we don't want that. So that's why we keep asking for money, and we do it all with that money that you guys are so generous to give us. And we can't reply to every single message because the only way to do that would be to create an AI that fakes it. And
we don't want to do that. It's just Jordan and I. It is still just us two. So we want to answer all of your comments and your questions, and we are working towards getting to that place. But right now it's 1 to 2 people doing all of this. And that's why we're so thankful for all of your support, whether it's words, comments, donations, sharing our links, literally anything. We're thankful for all of your support, and we are working towards building this up and making it bigger, but we want to do it right. I do promise we read everything. Yes. We just don't have the capacity to respond to everything. We get thousands of comments, and there's 2 of us to read.
Oh, yeah, no, but what I absolutely can and always do is I have a spreadsheet with all of those comments. I read through all of them, and I identify the trends of what a lot of people are talking about, and that's how we choose the comments that we read out on the podcast. And with that, I actually want to read one more. Somebody gave us some advice that I think we're working towards getting there, and there are some challenges with, so I want to address it. Somebody said, rather than continuous begging for money, every ask for donations should include an outline of where every dollar is spent. In addition, I get multiple requests which supposedly target the same problem at the same time. These should be coordinated, and I wish those could be coordinated. Unfortunately, and Shayna, you know this, with a lot of the laws around PACs, you actually clear. Limited in what you can and can't say in messages you send to people because they cost money and are technically ads.
Yeah, we cannot always put all the information we want to into text messages to send out. It's a really crazy, deep process that desperately needs to be changed and has actually rapidly changed over the last few years. But we do want to, in the future, coordinate things like that. And we want to be more open about everything. And we are working on that. We would love to tell you where everything's going. And that's kind of what this podcast is try and show you where all of the donations are going to. But if you have specific ideas, please email us. Actually, after seeing this comment, it reminded me, Jordan, do you remember when we first started, there was that software engineer that emailed us and gave us suggestions on how things could better flow, and we thanked him and took some of his suggestions in because they worked?
Oh yeah, he was great, and that was some really helpful advice. And similarly with the petition system, I've been taking in a lot of your all's advice to make it better, because as much as the legal challenges are half the battle, part of the problem is Democrats don't right now have the technology to coordinate those messages because companies haven't invested in that. So what we're actually investing your money in is building that technology from the ground up. It doesn't exist. So we've got to start from nothing. And
Takes a while.
Yeah, it takes a while, and we're keeping you updated here on Concepts of Pod with where we are. And we look forward to continuing this conversation with you and having you join us as we build the technology to help Democrats across the country fight back and win the midterms, because clearly Trump is giving us the argument. We just need to sell the message, and it shouldn't be hard as long as we invest in building the tools to do it right. So on that note, looking forward to hearing from you. If you're not already, subscribe, like, share, and comment so the algorithm boosts us, because we are at the behest of the algorithm gods.
But we are so serious when we say we want to hear from you. We read everything. And if you have suggestions for how we can better do things, please let us know. We don't know everything. We would love to know everything, but we're just doing our best here and taking in information and comments and opinions from everybody. And we want your opinion, and we listen to and put your opinions into practice. So please let us know what you want to see, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.